This question wants us to use the graph to fill in the information below about this sine function. So in other words, we're going from graph to equation. The general form of these sine equations is y is equal to a sine of bx minus c plus d. So in other words, we need to know what a is equal to, what b is equal to, c is equal to, and what d is equal to. Okay, let's start with the easy one, which is our vertical shift. We can see that our midline is right here at positive 1. So if that's our midline and we've been shifted upwards 1, we know that our D is, and it's a positive 1 because we went up 1. The next thing that I would always start with after D is finding A. And A comes from our amplitude, or the distance from our midline to the maximum, or from the midline to the minimum. And since our midline is 1, the distance from 1 to 2 is just 1. So we know our amplitude is 1. And we know it's a positive 1 because it starts at the midline and goes up to its maximum. If it was a negative 1, it would have started at the midline and then went to the minimum first. So we know it's a positive 1. The next thing to do be to figure out what our B is. Okay, so we know our B is associated with our period, and our period is equal to 2 pi over B. Okay, but from looking at this equation, we know our start point is pi over 4, and we know our end point is 3 pi over 4. So to figure out what this distance is, we can just do 3 pi over 4 minus pi over. And this is going to be our end point minus our start point, which gives us our distance. And that distance is going to be 2 pi over 4 pi over 2. So we know our period is pi over 2. Since we know our period is pi over 2, though, we can actually plug that in, this in, for right here. So now we have pi over 2 is equal to 2 pi over b. So what we're doing is we figured out what the period is, and we're setting it equal to the formula for the period, and now we've only got one unknown, and we can solve for b. So let's go ahead and multiply both sides by b, and we get b pi over 2 is equal to 2 pi. So then if we multiply this side by 2, we get b pi is equal to 4 pi. And then if we divide both sides by pi to get b by itself, we get b is equal to 4. So now we know b is 4. The last thing to do is to use our phase shift and then use our phase shift to figure out what our C is in the same way that we just used our period to figure out what B is. So our phase shift, is equal to C over B. And by looking at our graph, we can see our start point is here at pi over 4. So we know our phase shift is pi over 4. So our phase shift is pi over 4. And we're going to set that equal to C over B. But we know what our B is. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. And now we're going to solve for C. So if we multiply both sides of the equation by 4, get C is equal to pi. So we have found the equation or all the different parts we need for the equation, and we can plug in our answer. Now that we've found our A, B, C, and D, let's go ahead and fill everything in. These boxes are too small for me to write in, so I'm just going to write it beside it. So we have Y is equal to our A, which is 1, sine. Our B is 4x. And then we know we're shifting to the right, so we have a minus our C, which is pi. Then we have our vertical shift plus D, which is 1. So we have 1 sine of 4x minus pi plus 1. And that's our final answer.